Hey there, this is Zachary,
And I'm Jay.
the hosts of Fear and There.
Thanks so much for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
In a world where everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and life as we know it revolves around social media. Here to humble down those social media addicts who believe in all things through the internet, it's time for a reality check. Hey, welcome back to Reality Check, giving you your weekly dose of reality. Today, we don't have anyone to interview, except giving you the story of myself. Me, your podcast host, Catherine Smith. Today, I want to talk about something that's extremely important, and that is the awareness and advocacy efforts of Suicide Awareness Month, which is for the month of September. Everyone has their own story, and they've been impacted somehow by some form of mental illness at some period in their life, whether they've experienced it now in their COVID-19 lifestyle or previous to it. But I almost guarantee that each person you will come in contact with and you will get to know has met someone or has had to deal with some form of a mental illness, whether that's depression, anxiety, panic attacks, or even mental disorders themselves, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and I can go on and on. However, the dangerous thing about these mental illnesses is that they sneak up on people. It certainly did sneak up on myself, but more importantly, it snuck up so closely that it cuddled up right with my best friend. And for me, that's where my story of depression begins. It was September 16th, 2015. I was sitting on a table watching Wheel of Fortune with my mom, waiting for our lasagna dinner to be done. And yes, I was sitting on top of a big table. I don't know why I was sitting on it, but for the moment it felt truly comfortable. I was trolling through my social media on my phone, on Facebook, and I kept seeing these messages that people were posting saying, "Rest in peace, Giggles. R.I.P. Diggles. We will miss you, fly high in heaven." And I was really confused because my best friend's nickname was Giggles and Diggles. I was in a full-on panic mode. I was not only confused, but essentially I kind of went numb. I texted my best friend and I asked, "Hey, have you seen anything on Facebook pertaining to Giggles? Have you talked to Diggles? What's up?" And he didn't get back to me. I ended up IMing one of the people that ended up posting on Facebook that was one of my Facebook friends, and I asked, "Who are you talking about? Who's this Giggles? Please, please, please give me information. It's very important." As I waited for minutes that passed on by that felt like forever, I texted my best friend of which I was worried about. I said, "Please, please, please get back to me. I would really love to hear your voice." And lo and behold, I get a message from Facebook that was from one of the individuals that commented and posted about R.I.P. Giggles. It was the worst moment of my life. I was told that my best friend of 17 years committed suicide 3 months shy of his 18th birthday. This was something that I never thought that I was going to have to ever deal with. I never felt a sense of panic more in my entire life. It was a moment of pure emptiness. As I sat on the table, I dropped my phone on the floor and I simply screamed at the top of my lungs. My mom in the other room comes rushing in, and the only words that I could get out of my mouth was, "Diggles is dead. He's dead." My mom was in pure confusion. My own best friend, Justin Diggles, committed suicide on September 16, 2015. And he didn't tell anyone goodbye. All I got was a text message that was just 2 days prior saying, "I hope you're doing well. I really miss you." And I never replied. And that was one of the biggest regrets of my life. My mom, the very next moment, texted Diggle's mother to see if everything was okay, if this was true, anything that was going on that she could help the situation, because she was in panic. She was in disbelief just as much as I was. I was confused why I wasn't crying. My heart sank to a million pieces like the bottom of the ocean, and I couldn't find it, and I was swallowing all this water and feel as if I was drowning because I was in such a disbelief that my best friend could possibly be dead. I walked to my room, I sat in my bed, and I called our other friend, who we both have known and cherished memories with for a very long time. I asked him if he saw the messages on Facebook, if he's talked to Justin, and he said no. I was in a sheer panic, as I've mentioned previously time and time again. However, I called Justin to see if he was still alive, and of course, there was no answer. I walked to my room, I sat in my bed, and I called our other friend, who we both have known and cherished memories with for a very long time. I asked him if he saw the messages on Facebook, if he's talked to Justin, and he said no. I was in a sheer panic, as I've mentioned previously time and time again. However, I called Justin to see if he was still alive, and of course, there was no answer. In that moment, I knew what had happened, and I couldn't comprehend why it happened. But later, I find to come out that my best friend committed suicide by hanging himself from his basketball hoop in his garage. There was no note. There was no message of "I'm sorry." It was a simple, instant action that ended his life. As the next week rolled by, it was time for his funeral. Of course, I haven't been to school. All my friends were wondering where I was. I didn't really tell anyone anything because I was so numb to the idea that my best friend was no longer my best friend and alive and well and thriving in life. So when I pulled up to the funeral, I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't even open up the door. Every time I touched the handle, I would fall into my chair and just bawl my eyes out. My support team of my mother literally carried me to his funeral ceremony. There was a long line of spectators and people who wanted to show their condolences, which just warmed my heart, but at the same time, my heart was so frigid and cold because I knew that I didn't have him anymore. The thing that hurt the most was walking through the aisles of photographs of him and I that were posted amongst the walls throughout his entire ceremony. The words and expression that were given by his brothers and his friends from high school, I felt numb to. They didn't affect me. I didn't feel like it was a moment of passion and love. I felt angry and sad, and I didn't know what to do with my feelings. I couldn't even look at his own mother, of which I have known since I was 4 years old. It was really heartbreaking to the fact that this person that I called possibly my second mother, I couldn't even look in the eyes to and say, "I'm sorry." I was so hurt over the fact that my own best friend had this selfish act of suicide. As time went on, I stopped going to school. I didn't go to school for about 3 months of my senior year, which is supposed to be the best year of my life. My school guidance counselors, psychologists, and teachers knew of my situation and were very understanding, which I'm very grateful for. However, I really needed to get on with my life if I wanted to move on and thrive just as Justin wanted me to. And I knew that he was looking over me. However, it was so hard and absolutely unbearable to breathe each and every day knowing that he wasn't breathing with me. It wasn't until I found the blessing of a chapter called National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI's chapter of Wisconsin. There they have a list and long line of professionals and experts to help with individuals who have been conflicted with depression and anxiety due to suicide of family members, friends, or whoever it may be, that each person is individually impacted by mental illnesses and have been put in certain situations that are besides their own. It wasn't my mom who helped me. It wasn't my friends who helped me. It wasn't even God who helped me. It was the chapter of Wisconsin NAMI. They knew exactly what to say. They knew exactly how I felt. And it was absolutely incredible to know that I had a support system that knew through and through how to handle my depression and anxiety. They didn't suppress my feelings. They uplifted my heart and emotions, allowing me to cry through it. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry through the hardships that you may go through, especially through such a significant loss. And the chapter of Wisconsin NAMI knew that. They helped me. Over the course of my 6 months, as I would like to call my rehab period of getting back on my feet and really coming to the grips and acceptance that Justin is gone and he's not coming back, I allowed my mess to be my message. Not only did I allow my depression get the best of me, but I learned how to manage my depression and face by telling my story and sharing my message with the world of Justin's story. One thing that I have to remember is that Justin did something that was not only hurtful to myself, but it was courageous within his own acts. And it's not something that I like to say. However, the fact that he took that action was within his own thought process, within his own decision. It is not my fault for what acts that he has done. I have no bearing and no control over what he could have done or did. And that's something that I came to the grips to. But by talking through virtue of students and academia, I was able to share my message of how Justin impacted my life so positively in such a great way that I could ultimately accept his passing because I knew that he left this world in such a way that was so negative, but his smile and his lasting memory and his legacy overbared his impossible decision. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very heartbroken by his decision to this very day, but nobody should ever have to go through what I went through, nor should any other person feel as if they should take their own life because of their own sadness. And that is what NAMI has shown me. It has shown me that my mess is my message, and by sharing my message of hurt and that distraught feel and anxiety, that nobody should ever be put in that position. Suicide should not be an option for anyone because this is not the last resort. Just when you think that you're lying on the back and the world around you seems to be crumbling, there always will be a light at the end of the tunnel. And by you lying on your back, there is always a forward coming front. Justin was my light and still is to this very day. Cherish my memories that I've had with him. He's uplifted my hearts, even looking over me to this very day. I hope that he's proud of me. But at the end of the day, I continue to share his message and allow my mess of depression to be my message for others, so nobody ever feels that they're alone. Depression is something that is a silent killer. Nobody should ever feel as if they have to resort to suicide because that is something that hurts other people. If you or anyone you know is struggling with depression and or suicide and feels as if they are going to take the measures of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. For help and assistance, much like my scenario, please contact your local chapter of NAMI at www.nami.org. No one should ever feel the bearing of depression nor the struggles of suicide. We are in this together and we will band together no matter what. There is resources, you are loved, and no matter what, you are worth every ounce of struggle.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today on Reality Check and getting your weekly dose of reality. I'm Catherine Smith, your host. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you listening to Reality Check. For even more content, follow us on social media at Reality Check Blog. To stay more engaged and get your topics covered on Reality Check or maybe even your story using the hashtag Reality Check. Reality Check is an official production of Public House Media.